Hello, African Confessions. I am back with another episode. There is a message that I want to share with you guys, and it comes from a translation. The message reads like this. Hello, my brother, how are you? Can you please post my own story? My brother, I am a man who is facing a lot of challenges, but I didn't face these challenges after I had started visiting a lot of traditional healers, but I started to face all of these challenges in my life. Even when I was still in high school, I was someone who was really talented, not in school, but I was someone who was a born hustler. So what I used to do is that I used to sell a lot of stuff, and when I was around 23 years, that is when I got my first taxi. And my brother, there is a lot of things that happened to that taxi that I still don't even understand to this day. But I also blame the first love of my life. She is the one who made me to walk on this path that I am walking. I am a man who is facing a lot of challenges in life after the decisions that I took. I took a lot of wrong turns in my life. In love, I took a wrong turn. In religion, I also took a wrong turn. But before I faced all of these challenges, after I had broken up with my wife, when I had broken up with my wife and when I had done all the things that I did, my life was smooth like milk at first. Life was sweeter like honey. But I didn't know that I am leading my life to a path of destruction. What happened is that I was someone who was really talented from a young age. I was not talented like in education, but I was someone who was a hustler. I used to do a lot of business deals in the Kasi, and when I was still a young man, I then formed my own construction company. Whilst I was going to school, there were other guys who were working for me. Then what I did is that with the money that I got, I then purchased a second-hand taxi. So I didn't have enough money at that time to raise money so that I can join a taxi association. Yes, money was flowing in for my little construction company because I had my team that used to go around the locations and they were making those cement bricks. Money was coming in, but the other challenge that I was facing is that I was dating my girlfriend who later became my wife. She was someone who was really intelligent. She knew her stuff, so she had completed her matric and she wanted to go to university, and the kind of a degree that she wanted to do in university, it was costing a lot. But me and her, we reached that decision because me, without a proper background in education, it was going to be very difficult for me to acquire a loan when we wanted to do something with our lives. So we made that decision that I had the money and she had the brains. So she went to university. Then she graduated with flying colors. When she went on her attachments, that is when she quickly got permanently employed. Our lives changed. On my side, I was still hustling for money so that I can pay for a bride price, so I could not join the taxi association. So my taxi was always doing these illegal routes for a very long time until one of the taxi association caught up with me. This was after me and my wife, we had our baby at that time, and she was already working. I can say that she was now an independent woman because I had helped her with the money that was coming from our taxi, which was operating on some illegal routes without a permit. The money that was coming from that taxi, instead of me joining a taxi association, I then made a decision with my wife that we should purchase a house, but we got this house via a bank loan, but there was a deposit that was needed. So we were using the money that was coming from that taxi. After that, we then purchased that house, and the house, my brother, it is still giving me a lot of pain because even though I was the one who paid the most for that house when the bank requested for a deposit before they could give us the loan for that house, I paid a lot of money, but I don't have any evidence to prove that I am the one who paid a lot of deposit on I am the one who did a lot of down payment on that house. I was in love, and me and my wife, we trusted each other. Nothing was going to go wrong, but a lot of things happened. I made a lot of mistakes in my life, and maybe God punished me for all the mistakes that I did. What happened is that when one of the taxi association finally impounded my taxi, then all of my businesses, they started going down, and there was no recovery from that. I was now a stay-at-home dad. Yes, I still had a very little construction company, but the jobs were not coming each and every day. That is when I think I made the worst business deal of my life, because at that time, when I saw that in my construction company no money was coming in, I then decided to go and join the other subcontractors who were building RDPs in another area. But I got robbed, my brother. We built a lot of houses, but the money never came. There was trouble at home. Then there was trouble at work, because I could not pay any of the guys that were working for me. So I had this close friend of mine. He was a builder, but he was a foreigner. He was the one who was responsible for the day-to-day runnings of my company. He was the one who understood my situation, everything that was going on in my life. I reached a point whereby things got so bad at home, and at that time I fell sick. I think that it was because of high blood pressure. I felt so sick. My back was always aching, and because of high blood pressure, because now my wife was having a boyfriend, and I knew that she was having a boyfriend, and whenever I would try to speak with her, she would threaten me to kick me out of her house. It was no longer our house now. It was her house. I even thought of hiring those guys so that they can just shoot her, but I didn't want blood on my hands. With a lot of counseling, other people told me just to relax and just act as a man. I saw that hiring a hitman was not the solution that I wanted. I wanted to become rich, my brother. My back was always aching. With all these sicknesses and bad luck that was going on in my life, I started visiting a lot of traditional healers. Some of the traditional healers that I used to visit, they were from my local area. Then some were foreigners. I visited a lot of people. There is no church in my area that I didn't go to. Some people told me that it was God who was testing me, like the way that he had tested Job in the Bible. But I could not understand why God had chosen to punish me like this. I was not a Christian, yes. I was someone who didn't go to church every day, but I didn't deserve this punishment that God was handing down to me. And the worst part about it, my wife kept on being promoted at her job, and she would go out and celebrate. I don't know whom she would go out to celebrate with. She never had time with me. Whenever I would want to have sexual intercourse with her, sometimes she would agree, sometimes she would not agree. Whenever she would agree to have intercourse with me, she would just say, I am doing this because you are the father of my child. Sometimes if you spend more than 3 minutes on top of her, she would start to insult you, and she will say, this is what a man who doesn't work thinks. If a man is working and chasing after money, a man will never think about these things that you keep on thinking about. So she would push me aside. Sometimes before I could finish, my life was really hard, my brother. I don't want to lie. I started to become addicted to pornographic material because there was no way that I could relieve myself. My wife pushed me to the edge. Then I started dating another woman, and this was the opportunity that she was waiting to divorce me, because as someone who was really stressed, my wife quickly found out that I was now having a relationship. That is when I lost the whole gamble. She kicked me out of her house. I tried to explain to her relatives that she is the one who had done all of these things to me. She had caused me to cheat. She was emotionally abusing me. But her relatives didn't want to hear anything from me because I had cheated on their daughter. Then my wife successfully kicked me out of the house. Life was so stressful because even that woman that I was cheating on my wife with, She already had her own partner. I could not move in with her. I was just homeless, my brother. My taxi had been impounded and there was no way of me getting it back. My construction company was just struggling. It reached a point whereby I used to travel with my builders. Sometimes we would even sleep in an unfinished house that we would be constructing at that time, because unlike other construction company bosses, I no longer had any money to pay for a guest house like I used to do whenever my builders would go around the country constructing some houses. I used to book for them in the guest houses, but now life was so hard. I was suffering from headache. Whenever the sun would get hot, I would start bleeding from the nose. With the help of my friend, that one who was a builder, he told me that if I were to visit this Sangoma in his country, everything was going to be okay. Then on this other day, he told me that he was going to travel back home to his country. When he was traveling back to his country, this was during the Christmas holidays, but before Christmas, I decided to join him, but he was the one who paid for my bus fare. I even went there without a passport. I was really desperate. Whilst we were on the bus, I was scared. Especially the time that we left the South African border, I was really scared. Here I was in another country without any papers, but we arrived at his village and everything was okay. Then after the Christmas holidays, that is when he told me that we will get on another bus, then we will travel to another village. That village, it is called Chipinge, if I am not mistaken. It was a long journey to reach there. Finally, we arrived at this shrine. It was a scary one, and the Sangoma that I met there, he was really a scary man. He told me everything that was going on in my life. The moment that we arrived at his place, one of his followers came to the place where I was and he called me by name. This really surprised me. How did this person even know my name and my surname? Then I entered into that consultation room and I was told all the things that were going bad in my life and who was bewitching me. They said that they could do something that is go back to sender, and I agreed. I was told that the person who was doing all of these things to me was my father. But growing up, I had never met my father because my father and my mother, they met when they were still young. Then when my mother fell pregnant, then my father decided to run away from my father. That man made my father to appear in something that looked like a mirror. It was not a mirror as such. You know, in the old days, there was this thing that was called biscope. Like you can see the images of a movie on a wall. That is what was happening when I was consulting with that Sangoma. My father appeared on a wall and I saw everything that he was doing. He was the one who was creating all of the bad luck that was happening in my life, so that the children that he had with his current wife, they can have a better life. I was really angry at my father. That man asked me, what do you want me to do with your father? Do you want me to return all of the bad luck to him, or do you want to make yourself rich because your father has already used you? Do you want to be rich? So when he said, do you want to be rich, I didn't understand what he meant to be rich, because all that I knew was that he had told me that he was going to return all of the bad luck back to my father. But at that time, I thought about my wife, how she had dumped me, how she had mistreated me. So I wanted to return back to my country as a rich man. That is when I said, please make me rich. I remember that on that day, I even went on my knees and I was crying, because that man, when he was speaking with me, when he asked me the question that, do you want to be rich? When I said yes, he said, I can't make you rich because you are not brave enough. Then I fell on my knees. My legs were shaking. My whole body was shaking. Because I was now looking at an opportunity to become rich. But this man was now telling me that I didn't have what it took to be rich. I went on my knees and I started to cry. I cried so much, even tears were falling from my face. I told him all the good things that I had done for a lot of people back in my country, how I had managed to take my wife through university, how I had managed to raise money so that we can make a down payment on our house that she later claimed to be her own house because we had put that house in her name. I cried so much. Then that man said, "It is okay, you can get up on your knees, go and sit there." This really troubled me because as I was sitting in the corner, a lot of people were coming into that consultation room, and he told me that I should not move or do anything. A lot of people came and consulted with him throughout the day. And when it was around 11 p.m., that is when he said that he wanted to rest. Yet outside, there was a long queue of people that were waiting to be assisted. After that, he then instructed one of his helpers to take me to another room. When I went to that room, then that helper stripped me naked.